No Limit Texas Hold'em is the Cadillac of poker. The key to the game is playing the man, not the cards.
Dare me, go on, bluff me, come on.
That's the bluff of the century.
Oh, I finally trapped somebody.
He tripped me.
I'm all in.
All in.
Your car gonna be all over, baby.
Shuffle up and deal.
Needless to say, Lon, I am stoked.
Welcome to the Poker Podcast. Same great show, different platform, new website, same two guys. I'm Vic Porcelli, Big Slick, a.k.a. Andy Kaysen. How are you?
It's great to be back doing this, buddy.
God, it's great to look across and see you there and know we're going to talk about poker for a little while here. Just to let everybody know, we did do a podcast, and now we're doing the same thing we always did, just a new name, The Poker Podcast. And by the way, you can always find us at thepokerpodcast.com, and a new platform, and it's the same show, just a new place to find it.
Excited about it. I think we have a lot of good things happening here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Coming up in this edition of The Poker Podcast, say goodbye to the November 9. We thought it was around forever. We talked about that so many times. It's gone. We'll talk about that. Guess who's coming back to play in the World Series of Poker 2017? It's a legend. We'll let you know coming up. The WSOP schedule, some really unique, cool, new tournaments. And some of the old ones that, you know, us regular guys can get in if we feel like it.
A lot of new cool ones.
Good for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely good for everybody. Andy's got a hand analysis. We'll talk about his game, Poker Ambassador, and Poker Tweets, all coming up on The Poker Podcast.
They have been lining up for hours, all hoping to watch poker history unfold and see the new group of poker celebrities known as the November 9.
All right, Andy, we talked about it almost 9 years, actually almost 10 years, the November 9, and now it's gone.
Is it 10 years that it's been? Was Dennis Phillips the first year?
He was, and that was 2008, right?
Right.
So nine straight years of the November 9. Let's talk about that first before we get into what's going to happen now. Jeffrey Pollack, former, what was he, the president of the WSOP or chairman of the WSOP?
He was running it, certainly, and certainly in charge of the marketing aspect of it.
That was his idea. And I guess part of what bothers me is, you know, he was like, oh, now fans can keep up with the players and all that stuff. And truly, it was for TV, right?
It was all about, like most decisions, it was a business decision. Make more money, come back at the end, and have a platform where they, you know, have sold things through, and it's coming back, 3 months later?
Right. And I think, let's go back to the pre-November 9 when they never even did the November 9.
Right.
Played right through in July to a winner. We would watch it, or we wouldn't watch it, we would hear about it, and then we'd find out about it in November anyway on TV, but we'd always hear about it by then.
We knew what happened.
There's no way it's going to be a secret.
Right.
So we would already know who won the main event.
Right.
So part of the brilliance for television and for ESPN was that you'll be able to see everything that was played. This is November 9 days we're talking about now. You could see everything that was already played, and then it was timed perfectly so that in this week's show, it would get you down to the November 9, and then the very next week was the actual live November 9.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, TV ratings are May and November. November sweeps, right? So clearly it had everything to do with TV and not so much of how players can keep up with their favorite people and learn more about them. That was a bunch of crap, I thought.
Most people watch TV in the spring and fall. Summertime is the lowest watching time. So I don't know if that played into it. I'm sure it was a consideration, though.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But I think it was more so that for ratings than for, just so the regular fan can, you know, watch how they were. Because Dennis even did it. Everybody did it. They found coaches for those months in between July and November.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people took advantage of that time more than other players. You know, some people really spent a lot of time doing simulations, investing a lot of money in coaches, and like I said, simulations, and other people not so much. You know, when you think about the winner last year, and I can't recall the guy's name.
Qui Win
did not seem like the type of guy that was having Phil Hellmuth coach him doing all these simulations. He was very much on this, you know, it is what it is, man, and I'm just going to play my game. And
Qui Win was too busy playing Baccarat.
Right, and it worked out pretty well for him, didn't it?
Yeah, well, he played a crazy aggressive game with that. Remember that crazy raccoon hat or whatever that was?
Yeah.
Tried to get Norm to Antonio tried to get Norm to wear the hat. He couldn't get him to do it.
Good luck.
But you're right. And is it an advantage as a player to wait 3 months and come back and do everything you just said, get coaching and all that? Or is it an advantage to use the knowledge that you've learned in the last 7 days to continue with just that knowledge? Which do you think advantages
well, I think
the player?
The answer really depends on the player. So, for example, a really good pro probably doesn't want to come back. He probably doesn't want to give other people an opportunity to catch up to him in terms of coaching, getting knowledge, tendencies of other players, because he already has that. My opinion.
So, so a rookie, let's say, God shines his light down on me and I make the main event final table, I would be the guy that a break would advantage.
If you chose to take advantage of it. Not all of them did to the same extent, is my point. Some
Right,
of them
gotcha.
really did, and some of them not so much. So
Right.
I think it varies a lot.
I think it changed the game, really. I mean, it didn't change the game of poker. It changed the tournament because it was a grind, Chris Moneymaker won. It was 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, Vegas time. So it was, 4 o'clock in the morning where we are in Central Standard Time at the moment. And I think that it's changed the whole thing because poker was always that grinder mentality. Got to grind this out. 2 more days. Grind it out, get down to a winner.
Yeah.
And I think it's better. Are you happy with that the November 9 is going away?
Yeah, I thought about it. I am. And, it's weird because I never really thought about the fact that it could go away. I always thought it was kind of here forever. And,
We said that.
why would we assume that? Nothing lasts forever. And if you think about it, it was really kind of a unique concept, not only in poker, but in any sport or competitive event. Where do you actually go away for 3 months and then come back to finish the event?
Right.
It doesn't happen in any other event. It's pretty much unique to the main event, isn't it?
Totally. And let's talk about the money angle,
Sure.
If, let's just say, hypothetically, just to make round numbers to make it easy, let's say everybody at the November 9 makes at least $1 million.
Right.
They get that money in July, that $1 million in July before they go home, and then somebody comes back to win no more money. That kind of sucks.
Right.
And then there was the controversy of, oh, well, what's all that money doing? The WSOP's getting all the interest on all that money? But then the WSOP responded with, well, no, it's in escrow, and, the guys are going to get their share of it. I don't know who was, in this era of fake news that we live in. You don't know who's telling the truth.
I'm not even that caught up in the money thing. To me, that was a smaller component of it. It's more of really how does it impact how they play on their games. That's kind of the intriguing thing. To answer your question, I'm glad there's not going to be one. I want to see what it's like now because the game has evolved so much in the last 9 to 10 years. What's going to change now? It's different than it was in the Moneymaker era for sure.
Andy, that's a brilliant thought. Since the time of the Moneymaker era, 2008 was the first November 9, so 2007 and before was a completely different game, a less aggressive game than it is now. And so it's going to be a whole new experience for the players, for us to watch.
Here's another component. What about, because there's always been a whole contrast between the players that play live and the online players, and the online players really got a whole lot of credibility built up in the last 10 years, fair to say?
Sure.
So how does that impact them? If they don't have as much live experience, maybe they, as a component, might have taken more advantage of the 3-month break because of how many simulations and games they play. I don't know, just a thought, but I'm anxious to see how it plays out without giving them the opportunity to come back.
Right. And somebody like you're saying that's mostly an online player, which now, of course, would have to be in Canada or England or somewhere other than the United States. They have, well, honestly, Chris Moneymaker's that guy. He won online.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, we're talking about some really serious, successful online players. Chris emerged out of that event
Right.
to be himself. He wasn't
Right.
really a named person.
Oh,
I'm
I
talking
see,
about
yeah.
the really well-established, who are just as in every sense, as good as, live players. I mean, they play live now, and they've gotten a whole lot more credibility, is what I'm saying, in the last 10 years than where they were 10 years ago.
No
Does
doubt,
that make
no
sense?
doubt about that. And I think they are adjusting. I think some are adjusting actually, and some aren't. I think some have adapted some social skills and some haven't.
Right, very true.
God, there's nothing worse than having a kid next to you and you talk to him and he just doesn't answer you because he's got some kind of social thing.
How about a guy like Daniel Coleman? Think about how he's evolved. Remember when he wouldn't talk to the media and we hated him and we tore him apart in our previous show? I kind of like the guy now.
I do
he
too.
talks at the table. He's a reasonable guy. He'll do an interview. Just think how people have emerged. I guess it's part of growing up.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Andy, and that's a perfect example because, and I guess I apologize to Daniel Coleman on the things we've said about you, but you deserved it at the time.
At the time.
And now you've kind of grown up and you got some social skills, and like Andy said, you do talk at the table and do interviews. And what's wrong with that? Right?
Right.
So, this new format now, well, this new format reviving the old format of playing right through to a winner on the main event, mixed with the partnership, shall we say, with the World Series of Poker and Poker Central. You know, remember I was addicted to Poker Central.
I do.
I've gone through rehab, and now I don't watch before work, at least. But that now there never was any. There was zero World Series of Poker footage on Poker Central while I was watching it.
Right.
They would have WPT events. They would have WPT Alpha 8 shows on.
Sure, right.
A lot of those British shows. The women would all play. That was a British show. Cash games that usually were not in the United States. But now the WSOP and Poker Central have partnered. Listen to this. Andy, this is another thing that we have asked for I can't tell you how many years.
I know where you're going.
We'll be able to watch day 1.
Day 1, day 2, day 3, right? I mean, didn't we pick up like day 4 after they hit the money, I want to say?
Right. It was after the money, so it had to be day 4, I guess, because you get cash in day 3.
Day 3 now, since they made it 10% of the field cash.
Now, I'm not saying good news, bad news. It's different news, different news.
I'm saying good news.
No. It is good news that we can watch day 1. I completely agree.
Right.
The bad news is it's not going to be Lon McCarron and Norman Chad.
Who's it going to be?
I don't know. It's not going to be Jesse Sylvia. He'll be playing. Kara Scott may also be playing.
Vic's making a reference to Kara and Jesse, who do the deep
high rollers.
High rollers. I watched that, yeah.
But now Kara Scott is pretty much contracted to ESPN.
Right. She does the interviews, yeah.
So I don't know, you know.
Are you sure, in fact, that it won't be Norman Lon?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
well, let's find out more next show. Maybe we'll have if it's available. I don't even know if it's available.
I'm just thinking of, being in the radio business. I don't see ESPN saying, "Oh, sure, go ahead, guys, go on Poker Central."
Well, remember, it's a joint venture that the SOP contracted to Poker Central and ESPN.
Right.
And the two are sharing the entire SOP final event broadcast, correct?
Yep.
So they're working together. Maybe part of that, I'm just speculating, maybe part of that is talent gets to go on both places.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think part of the agreement will be that ESPN, I think ESPN is going to do some of the earlier days too.
Right.
The great news is, and Andy and I have been begging and pleading, I can't tell you for how long, to show us more of the day 1s. And I don't think there's any other better example than Oliver Hudson in day 1 against Sammy Farha.
Oliver Hudson in the lead right now with his pocket tens. The flop is ace, 10. Both get full houses, but Sammy's got the nuts.
You gotta be kidding me. This is the very first hand of the main event for both of these guys. Hudson has 10s full. I mean, he can't get up. This is a disaster movie for him.
Oh, my God.
Very first hand of their main event. Sammy's got the nuts, and Oliver Hudson is in shock. I mean, someone needs to tell him he can get up.
And there goes his $10,000 in one hand.
Unreal, wasn't it?
I mean, I felt bad for Oliver, and he was always good about it.
Yeah, he handled it well. You know, I have an advantage in that I was fortunate enough to play in the main event a couple of years ago, and I will tell you that you miss a lot just from my own experience by not including day 1. So what they ended up doing was, and I shared this with people because I saw when ESPN did this montage of highlights, they pulled it from day 1 and day 2. So you got to see it actually as a highlight reel as opposed to, it happening live. But there's a lot of things that you're going to miss if you leave out the first 3 days. No question about it.
And a lot of those weren't even hands. They were just like
the beauty pageant scene, remember that?
Miss Loose Aggressive.
There you go.
Andy Kazin right behind her, by the way.
Andy found the camera.
I think that was Andy's 0.8 seconds on television. And then on another hand, when the kid that cashed 5 times in a row got knocked out,
Barter, right?
You stood up. Right. You stood up. That was your other 1.3 seconds for a total of 2.1 seconds on television.
Vic knows how to find me on TV.
Always. I swear to God, I rewound that thing 100 times. And I said, I know he's in this scene. And sure enough, there he is. But what you're saying is the play is so different in day 1 than it is on day 6 or 7. Completely different.
Oh, it is.
Stack sizes are wildly different.
And, a lot of it might be what they consider inconsequential in the scheme of things, because a lot of people are just folding hands and nothing's happening. But if you think about how much action is going on, there's always something going on that's of interest.
And how about the fan that just wants to see Phil Ivey?
Before he busts? What if he busts day 2?
Think of all the big names that bust in day 1, 2, 3 that we never even got to see their face.
And the Hollywood people that play on a regular basis, the Ray Romanos of the world.
James Woods.
Yep.
You know? So, all good. November 9 is gone. We have to get Dennis Phillips in and talk to him a little bit since he was an original November 9er.
Let's get his input on that. That would be interesting.
You know, one question I asked him that's never been officially answered was, let's say, okay, you got this November 9 and they take 3 months off. What if, God forbid, one of them dies?
Yeah, we talked about that, right?
And Dennis said they blind him off. You know, how terrible would that have been? How bad would poker would have looked?
ESPN wouldn't look too good in that either.
They wouldn't. Nobody would look good. The other guys at the table wouldn't look good, and it's not their fault.
Right.
So let's get Dennis in subsequent shows and see what he thinks about the November 9.
Sounds good.
Doyle Brunson in position to win his 10th. There it is. Doyle's done it. The biggest name in the game of poker has proved that age is irrelevant. 10 bracelets for Doyle Brunson.
Guess who's coming back to play in the World Series of Poker 2017? Texas Dolly, Doyle Brunson.
I'm excited about that. You know, I was wondering if he'd ever come back and play because he hasn't for the last few years. Health reasons, etc.
Right.
Age.
Fatigue. I think that was part of what he said was, I'm fatigued playing 12 hours, and I'm, half his age. But, actually, I'm more than half his age. But I think it's just great for the game. I think it's kind of, even if it's like a farewell lap, you know what I mean?
I wonder if he thinks about it like that. Like maybe he's thinking, this might be my last chance, so I'm going to go out and relish it.
Andy, he's 83.
Yeah.
He's 83 years old.
And he's had health issues. He's had cancer. He's knocked cancer off a few times.
Kick cancer's ass.
Right.
And I think part of this is contingent on his wife's health.
Okay.
So as long as his wife is okay and he's okay, we'll get to see him. And honestly, when he does bust out, whether it's at the final table or whatever, and they announce that he's leaving, it's so great to see everybody stand up.
I'm just thinking what it would be like to play at a table with him. Wow.
I couldn't even handle it.
I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I could not even handle it. So, if all goes well, Doyle Brunson will be back. Question not to discuss right now, but we'll discuss it later. Does Chris Ferguson and Howard Lederer come back with their less than warm welcome last year? I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but it'll be great to have Texas Dolly back at the World Series of Poker. World Series of Poker begins end of May, and some of the unique, some unique tournaments that we've seen before we want to talk about. But there's going to be a $10,000 buy-in tag team No Limit Hold'em Championship.
Oh, it's $10,000. Oh, that's a pretty high price tag.
There's others too,
right,
at lower buy-ins, but this is the World Championship, the $10,000 tag team championship.
How far down into the schedule is it? What event number is it?
It's May 31st.
Oh, it's early.
It's event number 2.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's the event right after the
Dealer's
employee
choice
one.
thing. Yeah, right.
So it's interesting. I'm not sure exactly how the tag team works. Andy and I were talking about this on the drive up. 2 to 4 person teams.
Oh, it's not 2-person teams. I didn't know that.
2 through whatever you want, I guess.
Wow.
So how does the tag team work we were talking about? Is that dictated by the World Series of Poker, or do you say, I've had enough, tag me out?
Yeah. Can I come in when I want, or do I have to wait for an orbit or a level tend?
Right.
Talking about that.
Orbit or level.
And I was only thinking in terms of 2. With 4 people, my goodness, you have a whole lot more flexibility. And what about this? Do you think about, well, if I want to partner up with people, do I want to pick people that balance me? For example, if I'm an ultra-aggressive guy, do I want to get somebody that's kind of tighter for those times when maybe it would make more sense to have him in there?
It's a great point. I guess we'll find out when they start. I'm assuming that David Tuckman will be doing the live stream for us on WSOP.com. I hope so. We love David Tuckman. The Colossus is back, of course, $565 buy-in. There are 6 day ones. Were you out there when the Colossus was going on?
I was not out there then. I was there for that year, but there had 25,000 people.
I can't imagine what the hallways look like.
I think that's enough to basically book every hotel room in Las Vegas.
I mean, I was out there for your $1,500 event. Now, granted, the big one for One Drop was going on that year.
Okay.
But for the bathroom breaks, my God, you couldn't even walk through the hallways.
Well, and I was also there for the first year they did the Monster, which was...
Now, what did that look like?
Well, I mean, now instead of having, 5,000, you had... Boy, it was like a main event size crowd. It was like 7,000 people, I want to say. One event. It took over the whole every ballroom. There was nothing else going on in the Rio. That was it.
So 26,000 players. Oh, my God. All right.
Well, on the Colossus, it's not at the same time because it's staggering. They do
6
have
day
5
ones,
starting
right?
dates.
But still a ton of people.
But the Monster, when they did day one, there was only 1 day 1 and 1 day 2. That
right,
was
right.
it.
Oh my God.
So yeah.
That's crazy. The one drop tournament will be what they used to call the little one for one drop, $111,111. So I guess next year we'll get another big
The
one
alternate.
for one drop. I think so. The Giant is one that I hadn't heard of. $365 buy-in.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I believe that's the one where they have 5 starting dates and everybody plays down to the cash, and then they come back in July and play it out.
The day ones are all a week apart.
Right.
So it really is an interesting format for that one. But $365, that's one for the little guy.
Yeah, I like it.
And that's a bracelet event. It's an official bracelet event. Okay, new one. The Marathon. A marathon is 26.2 miles.
Right.
So it costs $2,620 to get in. Your starting stack is 26,200 chips.
No kidding.
So all based on the 26.2, and the blind levels will be 100 minutes.
100 minutes to start.
Yeah.
That's other than the main event. You don't find too many events.
That's
That's why they call it a
stretch.
marathon.
Right. Plus, you're getting 26,000 chips. It's not like you get 4,500 in a $1,500
You
event.
feel like you're playing a cash game where the blinds never go up.
Yeah, it is. That's a good one. And the marathon starts on June the 12th. Event number 60 is the Crazy Eights tournament, $888, an $888,888 guarantee.
Right.
So that's a good one, too. That one, a little bit more, obviously, than
It's
365.
also 8-handed. If you
Oh, it is 8-handed.
So just to run off the themes on 8.
So the aggressives get aggressive right from the beginning.
Well, it's what's it, one less play or 2 less plays? Yeah.
2.
2, 10. Yeah.
I'm sure they start with 10 to fit everybody in.
Right.
So 8 players would get things going a little bit quickly, shall we say.
Get more hands in.
There's 3 online tournaments. One is $3,000. I think one is $300. And then I think there might even be a $10,000 online tournament for a bracelet, which, of course, is not new. The online's not new, but having 3 of them certainly is.
So what a lot of people do for the online is they will fly into Vegas to qualify.
Yeah.
Like, let's say they live in a state where you can't qualify because it's not legal to play. They'll come into Vegas early, try and qualify that way, and play.
And play online, you mean?
They'll have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they can play legally online if they're in Vegas at the time, even if they don't live there.
So it's not your residence, it's where you are.
Where you are at the time.
Perfect. So you'll see a lot of people heading into Vegas just to qualify for those. And then the $50,000 Poker Players Championship 6-handed
Wow.
will begin on July the 2nd. And then, of course, we get into the main event.
What's the date on the main event start?
Main event starts on July 8th for day 1A, and the final table will be set on July 17th.
17th.
Final table play July 20th and 22nd.
Wow. So starting on the 8th, going to the 22nd.
And it's not going to be like 9 to 6 to 3. They're going to get it all done in 2 days.
Okay.
So it'll be longer
Kind of like that.
telecast. I do too. The longer poker's on television, the better it is for me. This is the Poker Podcast. You want to find us on the internet? It's thepokerpodcast.com. Same show, different name, different platform. I'm Vic Porcelli. Big Slick, A.K. Andy Kazin, sitting across from me, and his hand analysis is next on the Poker Podcast.
Motown Studios.
Welcome back to the Poker Podcast. I'm Vic Porcelli, Andy Kazin, A.K. Big Slick, with a hand analysis, which is kind of stretched a little bit today to talk about your game.
Yeah, what I wanted to do, it's been a long time since we've done a show, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about my game, and what kind of triggered it was the last podcast we did on our old show, we had Josh Turner as a guest. And I don't know if you recall this, most people probably don't, but I really took it to heart. We talked a little bit about Josh's game and my game, and obviously they're quite a bit different. Josh is ultra aggressive. I'd say I'm tight aggressive, if you will. And the question I asked him, and he answered flat out to his credit, he says, you know what, if you want to be successful, you don't have to play my style, but you can have a better chance of getting to where it really pays off. Not necessarily to the cash, but certainly to the top positions if you play that kind of a style. Spent some time thinking about it, Vic, and it made sense to me.
Well, one of the... I don't know if I want to call it a disadvantage, but one of the things about that style of play is there are going to be some tournaments that you will get knocked out of early playing that kind of a style.
No question about that. And Josh is the type of person, unlike me, quite frankly, honestly, that could afford to make 6 buy-ins to an event. So that's okay with him. Not so much with me. So you got to factor that in too.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have enough money for a second bullet, maybe a third, okay.
Yeah.
But if you're going in there with just the one bullet and that's it, I don't see myself playing that game right now. If I get any success with the way I play, maybe.
See, the way that we play, and I want to say overgeneralized we, because we're different players. We always don't play the same way as ourselves, let alone each other. But generally speaking, we're going to play more of a tight, aggressive style, which means we're going to be more patient, wait for good hands. And because we're going to win fewer pots, the pots that we win have to be bigger pots. So we have to make sure we win those ties. Not those ties, but any time there's a big pot there, we have to know we're ahead, and hopefully we don't get sucked out on. The reality is, if a chip stack isn't that large, the nature of poker, we will get sucked out on from time to time, even if we get in good.
Happens.
It's part of the game, and everybody accepts that. So where does that leave you then? It means basically you still have to get very lucky playing the style we play, which we think is more conservative and maybe less volatile lucky, but luck plays a pretty critical role if you have a smaller bankroll.
There's no doubt. And when you're playing against a guy like Josh Turner, and let me say up front, I think Josh Turner is, what we've called him this before, the Johnny Chan of the St. Louis poker scene for sure. And you just mentioned before when we were talking about Doyle Brunson. I don't know what I'd do if I sat at a table with Doyle Brunson. I got news for you. Sitting at a table with Josh Turner's not much different, because we know how he is. You know what I mean? We know how successful he is. Now, granted, the buy-ins are all smaller. I see you looking at me saying, there's no comparison between Josh Turner and Doyle Brunson. But not dumb it down, but scale it down a little bit, with the buy-ins from an HPT, things like that. Josh has 8 rings.
Oh, I'm not saying that I in any way discredit his talent. He's a phenomenal.
I guess my point is he's intimidating to play against.
For sure, but I guess my point about Doyle wasn't so much that, as much as about he's a legend. There he is live in a person sitting at my table.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not so much I'm intimidated by him, but just the fact he's right there.
Right.
I can touch him. I mean, that's pretty awesome. Arguably the best player who ever played the game. Well, certainly probably the most credible and famous, let's say. No, I agree with what you say about Josh, but the reality is, Vic, you're always going to be playing at a table. You can't control who's at your table.
Right.
So there's always going to be a possibility that there's going to be someone quite a bit more aggressive than you at the table. Hopefully not to your left, but you can't control these factors. What you can control is how you react to those things. And that's I'm spending quite a bit of time thinking about how I wanted to adjust my game, and I've started to open up a lot wider.
So
in the past.
That's what I want to ask you about, actually, because a tight aggressive style is great. But then when you realize you got that guy that plays like Josh Turner or Josh Turner himself, that, okay, I got to start playing back at him with less than premium hands, because he could be just playing his aggressive game.
He could be pretty wide.
He could be very wide.
Yeah.
Then you get into a situation like I did, where Josh Turner's on your right and Bill Burns is on your left. I just wanted to hang myself. The only good news was that Josh was on my right. You know what I mean?
It was one of the funniest broadcasts we did when Vic described that. I still think about it, and I remind Bill. I see Bill regularly about it, and it's very funny.
It is funny, and I respect the heck out of both of those
guys.
As
you should. Yeah, they're great.
But I don't think, to get back to what you're talking about, I don't think I am ready, clearly financially or emotionally, to start playing that much of an aggressive game.
Yeah, well, with me, financially, I can't say I am. Emotionally is where I guess I've decided to try it. I mean, the reality is, you're always looking to tweak your game and improve your game. How do I become a better player? That's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. And I mean, over the years we've done a podcast, I've become a better player. Being in a poker club has given me an opportunity to get exposure to a lot of players that I think at one point were better than me, that, are still great players. And I've learned a lot. And I'm always trying to learn more. I'm always trying to, how can I take it to the next level? And it just resonated with me a whole lot when I had that conversation on the air in the podcast with Josh about what does it take to get to the final level of a tournament, a big tournament. And I think he's right. Like you say, you have to be willing to fire a few bullets. But even if you only fire one bullet and it works, you're going to go down there with more chips. It does work that way. He doesn't always have to fire a second or a fifth or a sixth.
No,
bullet.
yeah, I get that.
Sometimes it works the first time because you got to stack early.
And, to quote the late Amir Vahidi, to live, you can't be afraid to die.
Right. No, that's a part of poker, right? I mean, the only time I'm afraid to die is maybe on the bubble of the main event, and I have a chance to cash there. At that point, I might change my game quite a bit and only play premium hand.
I think, too, tell me what you think about this. I think the more you play, like if you have the resources and the time to play all the time, I think that style is easier than, hey, I'm going to play in this, $350 HPT tournament. This is the only tournament I'm going to play all year.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I think there's a lot to that. But I think the other side of that and the way you can balance your game is you can play online on a regular basis, and you don't have to spend money to do that. You could spend very little. I mean, I wouldn't go free, but I go even the tiny cash stake games there. I do that, and it helps my game, and that's where I try things. And if something doesn't work, then I haven't lost my buy-in to a significant event. It's a couple dollars.
Right. So let's say you're somebody. If you have the resources and you have the time and you play poker tournaments every week, you travel the circuit maybe.
Sure, right.
And like I said, you do have the bankroll. Isn't it easier to do that style then than me walking into the HPT for my one event this year? It's harder to do that aggressive style.
So much so. Absolutely right. The only thing I would say is that you have a way you can balance that a little bit is buy online, play online. You can play online very inexpensively and try a few things out that way.
So are you doing that?
I am.
And are you playing more aggressively?
Yes. Yeah, and I try things. I will try things that I would never think about trying because I don't have the, if you will, the kahunas or the balls to try them in a live major event where I have a lot at stake.
Right. It's some of these guys, and Josh
Do you want an
Turner's...
example? Like maybe a 3-bet or a 4-bet or something like that.
Right.
It was funny. Somebody 4-bet me the other day, and I had the second nuts. I had a king high flush, and I caught the flush on the river, and I 3-bet, and he 4-bet. I'm going, well, if he has the ace, fine. I called him. I didn't raise him, figuring. And this is one of the things I think we've talked about before in our shows is like you only want to make a bet if you can get called by a hand that's worse than you, right? I mean, if he has the ace high flush, of course he's calling me. If he has junk, he's going to fold. So I bet this. So I just called, and he had junk. He had a bluff, and he thought he'd move me off the hand because I bet before the flush came.
Right.
So he didn't put me on a flush.
Got it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But the call instead of a re-raise, I think, was really smart because he could have always had the ace of whatever it was.
Yeah, I think mixing your game up so people have a hard time figuring out what you're doing is something that every good poker player does and strives to do, and I'm thinking about that more in terms of what are they. It goes back to that show we did a long time ago. What does he think I have? What do I think he thinks I have?
Yes.
I mean, that's still so relevant, Vic.
No doubt about it. And I gotta say, proud of myself. I 3-bet Josh Turner with nothing, and he folded, and I was hoping he'd say, "Did you have it?" So I could say, "I don't know, Josh. I don't remember." That would have been my Mike McDermott moment. But it didn't happen. But great thoughts.
That's a Rounders reference.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Sorry. So great thoughts. Another hand analysis next time out, okay?
You got it.
All right, time to pick a poker ambassador. I think we're going to agree on this. I'm going to go ahead and call Doyle Brunson our poker ambassador this podcast.
What a silly choice that was.
Right.
Of course, that's the obvious choice.
Ridiculous. I'm so glad that he's even thinking about coming back to the WSOP for 2017. Hopefully everything with his wife's health works out. His own health, let's not forget that.
Yep.
And just the fact that he would come back, because it's a thrill for us, whether you're there playing with him, whether you're home watching. It's like Babe Ruth doing his...
I got to tell you, I've thought about the fact that maybe I'll get to see him play again.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely, it's a thrill and relish the moment.
And if he could go deep, and we could see him going deep,
that would be above and beyond. That would
be
awesome.
this WSOP's story. Every WSOP has a story.
Who would not be rooting for that?
Exactly right. So our poker ambassador is Texas Dolly Doyle Brunson. Time for poker tweets, and we're back to Texas Dolly.
I hope he got one.
Doyle Brunson, because he made a tweet that was kind of the leak, shall we say, that he's going to be coming to the WSOP 2017. He said, when you order so much food from room service and they ask how many are dining and you say, 4, but it's actually all for you. Chip Reese and I used to do that all the time. He would holler out, "Food is here, guys. Hope you're allowed to say hello to me at the WSOP." So that was kind of the leak where Doyle may be showing up to the 2017 World Series of Poker. So our poker tweet, Doyle Brunson. Our poker ambassador, Doyle Brunson. And our Babe Ruth is Doyle Brunson. Thanks so much for listening to the Poker Podcast. I don't want to say our first show because we've done so many in the past, you and I. This is just a new name for the show. The Poker Podcast. You can look us up at thepokerpodcast.com, and new platform, new website, and we're really, really excited about being back. How about you?
Still Vic and Andy.
That's right.
Still
Vic
got
and
us.
Andy. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on the Poker Podcast.